Thank you so much for inviting me to be here today. As Chris says, my name is Justine Howl. I'm the Head of Communications for Birmingham Airport. I've been at the airport many, many years, and I thought I'd seen everything with SARS and MERS and 9/11 and the ash cloud, which we're probably all very familiar with. But nothing quite compares to 2020. I just wanted to put Birmingham Airport in a bit of context for you, in case you're not aware of kind of how big we were or will be again. We are the UK's 7th largest airport and the 3rd largest outside of London. Pre-COVID, we served almost 13 million passengers a year with 40 airlines and almost 400 direct or one-stop flights globally. And we support 7,000 jobs directly on site and a further 30,000 indirectly in the region. Then along came COVID-19. And I think it's fair to say that aviation was one of the first industries to feel the impact of the coronavirus, and we'll certainly be one of the last ones to recover, no doubt. I think my section here probably should come with a public health warning, because it doesn't make very good reading. But I think you only have to look at any newspaper or switch on the telly to know the impact on aviation and travel. By mid-February, we really started to feel the impact. You'll remember that the virus was creeping across Europe. Many of those northern cities in Italy were starting to use this lockdown term, and some of the first cases in the UK were from travellers coming back from some of the ski resorts in Italy. By mid-March, the situation had escalated globally, and airlines started suspending services. Borders were closing and people just simply weren't flying anymore. So our passenger volumes were tumbling quite rapidly, and by the time the national lockdown happened in the end of March, we were handling 99% less passengers than the same period in 2019. Typically these months, May and April, we handled 30,000 passengers a day. We were seeing some days with 0 passengers and 0 flights. And those airlines that were flying still, such as Ryanair, KLM, Air France, were continuing to do so with very few passengers on board. As a business, we had 3 core priorities: protect the health, safety and well-being of our customers and our employees, keep the airport open, operational and safe, but preserve as much cash as possible, because we knew that this was not going to disappear overnight. We were in this for the long haul. We suspended our capital programme, which included work on the master plan, which had only just commenced. We were extending our departure lounge. That was shelved for the time being. We will revisit again. But that master plan looks towards the future of us handling 18 million passengers a year by 2033. That will obviously have to be reviewed again when we know how this pandemic and how the industry will come out of the pandemic. We closed the South Terminal straight away, very early on, because Flybe had only just gone as well in early March. So the year started quite grim for us anyway. And we closed the runway overnight just to, because we weren't having the services operate. But we did make the decision to stay open as an airport. We didn't close because we wanted to serve the region. We were taking a lot of military, medical, emergency flights, as well as repatriation services. You'll remember that the Home Office instructed UK nationals to come home as quickly as possible. So we had a lot of repatriation flights at that point. During the first 3 months from the onset of the pandemic, passenger volumes and by extension aviation revenues dropped by 99%. And from the middle of July, there was a recovery, albeit very, very short-lived. And that was because of all the constant changes to restrictions and the travel corridors which were implemented in July. So this meant that we never really operated at more than 15% of our capacity since March. 70% of our team were placed on furlough, 50% are still on furlough, and we've sadly had to lose about 40% of our workforce. So it's been challenging, to say the least. The biggest challenges, I think, was the initial blanket on the quarantine. So this blanket quarantine policy, which meant that everybody arriving into the UK had to self-isolate for 14 days. But we warmly welcome the travel corridor policy, which launched, like I say, in July, and which exempted people from having to self-isolate for these 14 days if they were coming in from low-risk countries. But with the infection rate constantly changing globally, countries were being placed on the exemption list, being taken off the exemption list, and all that uncertainty has been really fatal for our industry. Although we know that there is an appetite to travel still, we've seen that there is a pent-up demand whenever restrictions are lifted in certain destinations. Unsurprisingly, customer confidence is therefore very, very low. It's at an all-time low, not just because of these changes, just because of the safety fears as well. And I think that that might live on for some time. We've invested heavily in COVID secure airport for our passengers and our employees, and this has ranged from very visual measures such as thermal imaging, perspex screen, which you'll see at check-in, and excuse me, as the security point, obviously PPE to protect our employees, hand sanitizer stations everywhere, face coverage are now mandatory at the airport when you're in the terminal as well. And the feedback from our customers has been really positive, and they felt a lot more safe because of these measures than what they expected to be. So in summary, 2020, overall passenger volume since March are down 90%. By the end of this calendar year, we'll have handled almost 3 million passengers. You compare that to 13 million, excuse me, last year. But 2 million of that 3 were handled in the first 3 months before lockdown. So as I mentioned right at the beginning, we do bounce back. The aviation industry is very resilient. It's unlikely that we'll see the passenger numbers that we saw prior to this really recover until 2023 or 2024. But with the new testing regime, which was launched this week, and with the vaccine rollout, we are confident that next year will be a better year.